I'm investigative journalist Molly Barrows. For years, I've covered the stories that made headlines in Northwest Florida and all along the Gulf Coast. Murders, missing persons, and mysteries of all kinds. These cases are far from over for many victims because the full story has yet to surface. Join me for Gulf Coast Confidential, where I dive into the saltier side of the South and expose the lies, greed, and corruption that often weighs down the truth. It's time to turn the tide and get a shot at justice. Hey y'all, I'm Molly Barrows, and welcome to the Gulf Coast Confidential podcast, where we are having a rainy day here on the Gulf Coast. It's what we call the proverbial frog strangler.
That sounds like from where I'm from. I don't personally say it, but I've heard it.
Exactly. And on rainy days like this, you really never know what's going to bubble up.
Never.
Just like a lot of these cases that we cover right here on Gulf Coast Confidential, we've got a Florida case for you today that is tragic, and it involves the death of a baby. And actually, we're going to be referencing the death of two children. So we just want to let you know, in case that could potentially be a trigger warning, that these are very sad stories and involve the death of children. And joining me, as always, is Pam Hill. She's a pharmacist and victims advocate. She has sadly experienced violent crime in her own life and in her own family, as folks who listen to the podcast regularly know. So before we dive into this one, though, we do want to remind you, if you would, to please like and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, whether it's YouTube or just your audio version. So we encourage you to do that. We appreciate your support. And then we want to let you know this episode is called Forgetful Grandma Tracy Nix, Hot Car Baby Death. And it says a lot in that headline, doesn't it, Pam?
It does.
A 7-month-old baby died when her grandmother forgot about her, and she died on a hot day in the back of the car in an SUV with the windows up. And the tragedy of it all was the second grandchild to die in her care. So there was recently a verdict in this case. Of course, we're talking about the case of Tracy Nix, and you followed it, watching it from gavel to gavel. And it's heartbreaking. Nobody intended for this to happen, but the fact that it happened not once but twice under the same person's watch, you do have to wonder, what sort of accountability does there need to be?
Right. With the same mother of the children within 11 months, and it obviously within the same family. And that's where I can identify here a little bit. When the person that's the offender and the victims are all in the same family, it's a hodgepodge, and you already have feelings that go one way or the other. And this is unbelievable. This is almost irreparable. So that's where we're starting. And it didn't happen that long ago. The last child, her little name is Uriel. She was 7 months old, and this happened November the 1st of 2022. And Tracy Nix, the grandmother, 65-year-old grandmother.
At the time, she was 65, 67 now.
Right.
Yes.
And she was a retired school teacher, held a master's degree. She taught Bible school, or Bible Sunday school, and she loved to sing in the choir and play the piano.
So by all accounts, she'd be the perfect babysitter, really, especially being in the family.
Right, and retired too. And so before that, though, baby Ezra, this happened on 12/22/2021.
He was 16 months old.
Right. And he drowned in the duck pond there. So
while she was watching him, he snuck out.
Supposed to be. Supposed to be watching. So why don't we start with the Ezra situation?
Okay. And then build up to what happened to baby Uriel.
Right. Ezra was the son of Kayla and Drew Shock. That's their name. They own a business there in their little town.
In the Tampa area.
Right. Wachula or something like that. Yeah. So they have their business there. Their son was 16 months old at the time, Ezra, and he was staying with Tracy Nix, his grandmother. And Tracy's husband name is Nunne Nix, like 3 N's there. Yeah, and he's retired too. He's the same age, or about the same age. And so they're watching Ezra. Well, Nay had taken little Ezra out before. They live in a 3,100 square foot home. They've got a barn out back. And Granddaddy Nun had taken Ezra down to their pond. It's not far at all. I think he drove him on like a 4-wheeler or something. And the ducks were there. So the child, he's enamored with that, the water, the ducks, what have you. So he'd done that on a previous visit. Well, on this particular visit, Nunn was outside and Tracy Nix was inside, and she had laid down to take a nap. Nunn was outside knocking around doing his stuff, and he went to Walmart. I don't think he came inside and told her or anything, but it is rumored and not necessarily 100% proven, but leaning far that way. She was on Ambien. That's not the rumor. But somebody had reported that she had taken 2 during the day. And Ambien, take it from me, a pharmacist, Ambien is meant to be taken at nighttime. You take it sitting on the side of the bed so you can go ahead and fall asleep.
Lay down immediately.
Right, because there's a lot of weird stuff that happens with your brain. One of them, and the most foremost thing, is retrograde amnesia, and you don't know what you're doing right in those moments.
Almost like a blackout.
Almost, and you're functional. Some people have driven in their sleep with Ambien. Some people have cooked. Some people have gone outside and planted flowers. They've done all kind of things.
Sounds like a criminal defense, too.
It is.
I didn't mean to mow down my neighbors.
Right.
I was on Ambien.
Right, and it has
I was
been a
sleepwalking.
defense.
Yeah.
You would be a good defense attorney because it has been that before. And it's retrograde amnesia. Like you say, well, our people get up and they go, what's all the bacon and eggs doing out and the ice cream and the this, that, and the other? And they're like, well, you got up and did all that.
That's my
night.
kind of amnesia right there. If I got to live with somebody who's got a sleepwalking problem, a cook would be fantastic.
Yeah, or donuts or something else.
Yes.
But you know what I mean? You get up and go, did I do that?
Right.
And I think she had fibromyalgia also, and she was taking some other benzodiazepines, like a Xanax or Valium or Klonopin.
All these downers.
Right, or central nervous system depressants. And they, obviously, some of the side effects of that are they slow you down, you're not as nervous. They're very good drugs.
Oh,
when
absolutely. And I don't say that judgmentally.
Right.
I understand. But just thinking of that combination, I don't know how somebody can function if they're on so much.
Apparently they don't very well. And it's you slow down. People that are taking the benzos and the sleep or sedative hypnotics type of drugs, your brain's not going to get any better if you just keep taking them. And taking them as they're prescribed is one thing, but doubling down and taking it because I don't feel like it's worked yet, or I know I'm going to be nervous later, that's kind of a different thing. But that's sort of been inferred about what happened here, because it was the middle of the day when she had Ezra. Well, he had gotten outside. He's 16 months old. His little reach was 36 inches to the tip of his fingers. The door, where the door handle was, it was one of those swoops that swoops down, was 34 and a half.
Oh, so it was just within his reach.
Right, his little fingertips got on top of it. And then he crawled under a fence and he gets in the pond. Well, Tracy wakes up and she doesn't see him, so she gets in her car and she drives out her driveway about a football field length. She doesn't see anything. She's going crazy looking for her husband. He's not there. So she's driving around. Then she heads back toward their house to the pond. She sees something white floating in the water, and face down, it's little Ezra.
Oh my gosh, what a nightmare. Bless all their hearts.
And so she gets him out. They have to call the EMS, Emergency Medical Services and stuff. Anyway, he is dead.
He's gone.
He's dead. And that in Florida, a one-time lapse of judgment with a child drowning in water is kind of, I guess, I don't know what you call that, like a mulligan or something.
No, I think you're right. I remember when I first started covering news, you and I were talking about this, I would be sent on scenes where a child had gotten out. The parents didn't notice. It's sadly not uncommon. It's one of the leading causes of death, actually, drowning in this state. And he had gotten out. Several kids I've covered over the years, and of all sexes and ages. And usually the parents are never charged, because I think the general consensus is among authorities and law enforcement is that it's punishment enough what's happened, that there was not any real intent. Now, if there's clear negligence, everybody was partying down, doing drugs, maybe there was some extenuating circumstances, but for the most part, if everybody's just hanging out and something unintentional and horrific happens, they feel like the result is punishment enough.
Yeah. And I would feel that it would be so hard to recover from that. That is eternal punishment. But the mother of Ezra, Kayla, she never saw the state attorney's office or the detective's report or whatever where they had chosen not to charge Tracy on that. She kind of, it's traumatic enough. It's enough going on. But later she found out that Ezra, the reason they didn't charge is because unless they had, or she thought, her mother held the little child's head underwater and drowned him, they would not bring charges on Ezra.
Wow, I know. Well, that's heartbreaking enough. So in the wake of this tragedy, Kayla and her husband decide to have another baby, and that's Uriel.
Yeah, and she is pregnant with Uriel when Ezra drowns. 3 months later, she has Uriel, or they called her Uri also.
Nice. So she was pregnant at the time. It wasn't in response to the death.
Right.
Okay.
So here, one child, you're mourning the death of one little baby, 16 months old, and you're having another little baby.
Do they have any other children?
They do. Older child, boy, and I think she's had another baby since. That's about maybe, don't quote me entirely on this, 5 or 6 months right now.
So they have 2 and have lost 2.
Right. And then then the situation with Uri was November the 1st of 2022. Here's what happened on that day. Kayla and her husband, they own a business, A1 Safari Glass, like a glass business. And Kayla had, she would take the children to work with her. She had a routine. She's a great mommy, showing up, a great wife, great employee. Her husband's a good provider. Things are looking great for the family until like the Ezra, that hurt a lot, and they're in mourning for that. But on this November day in 2022, Kayla gets a text on her phone. It says, your hair appointment is at, let's say, 11. And so, that's the one time this very organized lady, and on top of stuff, did not put it in her calendar. So here she is, because she hadn't been corresponding with her mother and definitely hadn't been letting her mother take care of her baby because of what happened with Ezra. So she still is Tracy Nix's daughter. That she's still a little 5-year-old little girl in there, in Kayla, that's my mom.
Of course, yeah.
And so she texted or something. I think they mostly did by text. Mom, can you take care of Uriel? And her mom's like, sure, I've got Bible study, and then I'm going out to lunch with some of my friends. And so Kayla thought, well, that's even better. Some of Mom's friends will be around. So she gets Kayla. After she does her Bible study, they go to Beef O'Brady's.
Oh, she gets Uriel.
No, Uriel.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
she
that's
gets
right.
Uriel. And they go to Beef O'Brady's, and she's having lunch with some of her friends, maybe from church and maybe from around. But you know how we do when somebody brings their baby. We ooh and ah, and let me hold them and eat while I do this, that, and the other. Well, even Tracy Nix was doing like with a little straw, open a little straw, putting it in water, putting a little water on her mouth, and everybody's oohing and ahhing. So, she's aware she has the baby. Brought the baby bag in, the diaper bag in.
Everybody had a good time.
Everybody
enjoying the
did.
Baby. Very normal thing.
And they were so happy for their friend, Tracy. Because here she is, she's getting to take care.
Another chance.
Right. What a privilege for their friend, too. So, this is where we're going. I'm describing all this because it is a mental thing. It's to the point where like, what did happen here? So Kayla goes to her hair appointment, and then Tracy gets through with her lunch. She puts the baby in the back seat, and they go home. Well, she drives up to her house, and there's some roofing going on, and her dog charges the car, and so she's got a little bit of chaos. She just goes in the house. And so when she gets in there, they say she talked to her other dog, and back and forth how people do, and she played and practiced the piano for hours. So that's where she was in there. And that went on and on till about 4:30 or around that time.
So then, the baby was in the car for about 4 hours.
Probably like around 3 or something.
Wow.
You know how babies are, how they are. We've buckled them in so tight, and she's only 7 months old. She's got on a onesie. This particular day, I looked it up.
It was a hot day.
It was 90 degrees in Wauchula.
And it doesn't take even that hot level of hot to affect a person, a baby, especially because children, their body temperature doesn't regulate the same.
Right. They don't sweat as good as we do, and it happens quickly with them. Well, Tracy's in there practicing her piano, doing what retired folks do, I guess, just enjoy the day. And she sees her husband outside working by the barn, and she thinks, let me take Nay some tea. So she comes back out of the house, gets in her car, drives out to the barn and takes him the tea.
So she has just completely forgotten that this baby's in the back seat.
Totally. It's out of her patterns. It's out of her routine. I don't know what happened. I don't know how she modulated. She's a retired principal. In my mind, that kind of individual would be on high alert the rest of their life because they've dealt with children so much and they know how things are. And it was such a chance for redemption. I'm just saying that because I don't understand, and I still won't when we're through. But so she goes out there to take him the tea, and then she realizes baby Uriel is in the back seat.
Wow. And so what happens then? He goes and gets the child.
Right. He takes the baby out and they try to do CPR. About that time, Kayla's sister, or Tracy Nix's other daughter, her name is Rebecca Tucker. She drives up and she was bringing her 12-year-old over for Tracy to watch. Tracy was going to take him Christmas shopping and out to do some things. They were going to spend the time together. And so all that going on is what's happening now. Rebecca gets up there, calls 911, and is like, my niece was left in the car, and she's losing her mind too. And Tracy is just walking around, just hysterical.
And you talked about how when she first realized that the baby was gone, that she went on all fours and was basically retching on the side by the barn and muttering, like, how can this happen? What kind of person allows this to happen? So obviously a very genuine and real guttural response.
Definitely.
Which is heartbreaking.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but if I'm that mom, I'm like, talk about conflicting emotions. You know, that's your own mother. You can't help but put yourself in her shoes and feel sorry for terrible decision making. But at the same time, that is the second child that has died on her watch.
And let's look at the dynamics of like the family. The husband knows that this has happened before with the other child. And I'm not one of those people that's like, men don't have to think about nothing. They can just go outside. I'm not that person.
Right.
Because that is your grandchild too. And if I was him, and this is me judging and probably being, a quarterback on Monday morning.
Right.
I would be checking on her, you know, and if I was the parents and this happened before, I would be calling my mom and go, hey, how did Beef O'Brady's go?
Right.
You know, or is my baby in the house?
Right.
You know.
And it just breaks my heart for her too, Kayla, because you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to give my mom a second chance. I'm going to get my hair done. And the first time you give her a second chance, this happens.
Right. And it's not like Tracy repeated the same thing. She could have baby-proofed that whole house of every lock, every precaution or whatever, and that would not have saved Uriel. So you're right. Out by the barn, there's this fracas going on. Tracy is gagging and on all fours. And you can hear her in the 911 call. The 911 call just is heartbreaking, yes. And the dad's trying his best. So they have all that going on. Then when the help comes, the emergency medical people, they're trying. And it's heartbreaking to hear their descriptions of when they got there. But these were some of the most compassionate men that I had ever listened to during their testimony, because they said her little hand had already had rigor set in and her little jaw had already clenched because she'd been there so long. And the lividity, or the blood pooling, it was in her back already.
She'd been sitting
right
there.
And her little onesie was like drenched and her little body was hot to the touch. So this is grown men coming out there falling to their knees too.
Well, it sounds like they had the most compassionate care they could have received.
Oh, definitely. And the deputies that were out there, one of them was describing what I just described to you, the rigor and the lividity and stuff. And they were asking him, you know, a trial is everything. And they were talking about, so then they put her little body in a body bag. And they were saying, well, what was this? And it was a little teddy bear the man had put in there because he saw that there. And then there was something else, like a piece of clothing and a quilt. And I just cried watching it because I thought, how sweet and good and thoughtful. And they asked him, well, why did you do that? He said, I don't know. She's a baby, you know. And this man, I mean, it's just incredulous to anybody and everybody. So I don't know what happened with Tracy's memory. When I watched on TV, on the table here, there would be notes sitting here, and they were all the exact same size, kind of in order. And I'm thinking, okay, that's probably what a principal would do, real organized like that. And then I got to thinking, I wonder if it's just her memory. Does she have dementia, some onset of, or is her medicine causing that? They said she had fibromyalgia also. So maybe she had what's called the fibro fog. And everybody, on the internet, the comments are off the chain on this either way.
Right.
Somebody's going for it this way, somebody's giving some grace. But this is a situation there, but for the grace of God go I.
Absolutely. Well, and she was charged this time around.
Oh, yeah.
They charged her with aggravated manslaughter for leaving that 7-month-old baby to pass away.
Right. And she was looking at 12 to 30 years for that. And that's what people were saying. What are you going to do? Make her go to prison to learn how to remember, or punishment or whatever. But some people are saying she's not showing enough remorse, or they're saying she's not sorry. I watched her sit in court, and I'm not a body language person, but she would sit back and lean back sometime. And sometimes some of the things we do are our career. I would think maybe to be a principal, you got to be quiet and sit back and listen and stuff. Or some of us might take that as, oh, prop on up there and just whatever,
Right.
And they were saying, well, she's not sorry enough. And I don't know how one determines that.
It was heartbreaking to listen to interviews of her daughter and son-in-law.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
yeah.
they were saying essentially, she goes, the daughter part of me, it breaks my heart to see my mother facing the possibility of prison.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the mother part of me to Uri, and certainly Ezra too, she's like, there has to be some accountability. I have to stand up for my children.
Right. And she said, I demand justice for my children. And this is an extra heartache for Kayla too. I feel so sad for everybody involved. No judgment on any of it. But she is like, what I feel like, and we'll talk about what happened with Uri, but she's like, what about justice for Ezra? Mm-hmm. He mattered. And that is so important. Mm-hmm. And so through the victim impact statements and all the people, saying something, Kayla said the hardest thing to watch was her sister up there having to relive it and go through that. Their whole family has imploded. It's just never going to be the same again.
No.
And I certainly understand that. But they, sometimes, like just yesterday, Stella and I were going to meet at McDonald's.
And Stella is Pam's friend.
Yes.
She's a fabulous cook.
Yeah,
if you catch our deep dives, which are live segments on Facebook, we usually do it from Stella Saba Studios.
Right. Also Stella's Kitchen.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah, we were going to meet at McDonald's. I don't know. She wanted a Big Mac or something. And she said,
I'm all about some filet of fish now.
Right. I like that too. So she said, meet me at McDonald's. And I must have pushed the button. I said, where? She said, and she got mad at herself for not being able to remember so quickly.
Yes.
But I mean, she's just recovering she's been through breast cancer. She's lost her husband. She's had a lot of trauma.
And then the older we get, menopause too affects your memory and
right.
how you think, the fog.
Or you could just say, come get me and I'll go with you.
Right, right.
But those kind of things.
We can all relate to
definitely.
And spacing something and forgetting and yes.
Right.
But my gosh, when so much is at stake and that's what's so heartbreaking.
Right.
And then there's certainly in Florida, other cases and examples of children that have been forgotten and left in backs of cars.
Oh, yeah.
And passed by their parents.
Mm-hmm. And they say that 25% of people that have a child under 3 have forgotten about them and admitted to that.
But like you said, if there's anything that we live with in this society, it's distraction, whether it's your phones or it's your car, or it's technology or your job or your house or whatever the case may be.
Right.
There's always something trying to demand your attention. And I can see how people can forget. But
definitely.
Unfortunately, it's one thing to forget to change your oil in your car. It's another thing to forget to take your baby out.
Right. And that's why I got that big old shoe right there. That is a left shoe. There's a lawyer that says, put your left shoe in the back seat with the baby. Or this is what always kills me when they say, well, put something valuable back there. I'm like, what? The baby ain't valuable enough, but also there's memory aids. Put the diaper bag up front, put your purse back there, put a toy. Like, when I started watching Vivian some, I bought my own car seat so I could put it on this side, the passenger side of my car. And then she and I had a discussion about rules, like I'll open the door and I'll hold your hand and all that. And she did all that. And I could see her in the mirror there.
Yeah.
But also, if a child goes to sleep, they're quiet, you don't think they're there.
Right.
And then by having them like right behind you, it's awkward because they can get choked on little things like this, like a little lifesaver, a little round stuff, or even their little grapes. or gum or something. And we just have to, we got to do something else. Some newer cars have an alarm in it. But my sister, Trisha, that's why I brought this. This isn't a bag of diamonds, bag of pearls. But she said, I treat, my philosophy with my children is that how would I treat a bag of diamonds? Would I leave the bag of diamonds at the end of my driveway by themselves? Would I let them be at, Optimus Park by themselves? And people are like, well, what? No, I wouldn't. The bag of diamonds is in your back seat. There they are. So all those memory aids, and I think about that for Tracy, and I'm like, she had to be sitting there like, dying another death.
I know. You're right. That family will never be the same. And the twists and turns continue.
Oh, yeah.
So we had the trial, and that went on for some time. And,
Right.
and Kayla had to testify, and everyone involved in responding to the scene testified. And there's pictures of the grandmother with her hands together praying. And it's heartbreaking. It's hard to see because, again, that torture of holding somebody accountable for what happened, but also understanding that they're grieving as well.
Definitely.
So apparently, the jury also felt incredibly sorry for her, and they ended up finding her not guilty of aggravated manslaughter, but they did find her guilty of leaving a child unattended in a vehicle for more than 15 minutes,
Right.
which seems like nothing bad really happened, So I think it's interesting that the jury was not allowed to hear that she took Ambien occasionally, however regular she took it. She did take it. And that also they were not allowed to hear about Ezra's death. So that didn't come into play. It was just strictly based on her actions and what happened with baby Uri.
Right. They thought that would be more prejudicial instead of probative. And that she is looking at anywhere from 6 to 7 years. It could go up to that. Or I think it could be a little bit of time in probation. But all right, so she lives in Wauchula there, less than 5,000 people. When they handcuffed her and took her off, I about lost it because she's a little principal, and a regular little lady. And so now she's in jail down there.
Awaiting sentencing.
That's going to happen on April 3rd, which will be Thursday. And here we go, all of a sudden, now she's being extorted sexually in the jail.
This is crazy.
It is crazy.
So what happened?
Well, she's got 2 roommates, and let me see what their names
Roommates.
are. Cellmates, sorry.
Right.
College girl.
Three's company, 2.
It's a sorority,
Right.
But anyway. So one of them's name is Rosanna Sanchez, and one is Sandra Cardoza. They're like in their 40s, I think. Well, Rosanna decided, people don't like people that kill babies anywhere, and definitely not in jail or prison. So one of them, this Rosanna, says, write me a love letter. And she does. She writes her a love letter. And then she says, here's the love letter from her, because they did have some consensual goings on.
They did a little hooking up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there was a added person in there because there's 3 of these people.
Well, there you go.
Right. So, I mean, this is the twist. Like this was not on my bingo card for 2025. Right. And is this like Orange is the New Black stuff?
Kind of like some jailhouse rocking that we may not want to necessarily see or get a lot of details on, but it happened.
Yeah. So here's the love letter she writes to Sanchez. And then so she tells Tracy, now you're going to pay me $1,000 or I'm going to turn this over to the newspaper.
Oh, basically saying, shaming her for having a sexual or some sort of relationship with a woman in jail, prison. So
Tracy contacts Nay, her husband, and says, you've got to bring $1,000 to one of them, sister, out here in the parking lot at the sheriff's department.
Oh, my gosh.
And he does.
And they do the deal in the sheriff's office?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's with one of them's sister. They're dum-dums. And so she tells her a week later, that's not good enough. That is not good enough. You're going to pay me $10,000 now. And then for $15,000, I can do... This is so damn crazy. I feel stupid saying it. Can do some voodoo and make all your problems go away. I'm like, if you can do voodoo, do yours.
Right.
But so this is the craziness that's going on there. So
the voodoo defense.
Right. For $10,000, she's like, no, I can't do this. So one of them roughs her up.
What?
There. Yeah. They beat her up.
Man, I tell you what, she is getting some comeuppance, whether we think she deserves it or not.
It is the oddest thing. So she told the guards, and the guards moved her. And so now we are waiting for sentencing 3 or 4 days from now.
Wow. So have these women been charged in connection
They,
with this?
yeah, they got
extortion?
extortion charges. They don't
Okay.
care.
Well, I tell you what. Well, it'll be interesting to see, what kind of a sentence Tracy Nix gets. She's 67 now. Whatever it is, she's obviously dealing with some health issues and she's older. So that's going to be challenging in and of itself. But it certainly sounds like there's a lot of, jail politics, if you will, that you've got to navigate some of these other people and personalities that you're locked away with.
Yeah.
What a nightmare.
It is a nightmare. Then you go on the internet. You got to go on the internet for everything. All the comments about that, people are dragging her for that too, saying, well, I knew she was like that when she was the principal at my school.
What, she had girlfriends or something?
I guess, or something like that. Anyway, it's getting nastier and nastier. It's uncalled for, But this right here, I'm sure this happens more than people know, but that's kind of one of those things. You should probably never have 3 people in a room, 2 people gang up on another person.
I know. Well, it's interesting because I know, you realized when your nephew, Brandon Adelot, had been arrested for killing your sister, Sharon, he was placed in the holding cell because it had taken years before he was found competent to stand trial. But when he finally was and was in the Santa Rosa County Jail, he was placed in a cell with another young man who also had been charged with killing his mother. So the two of them are about to go on trial separately, but they are in the same cell together for the same charge of killing their moms. And they, quote unquote, befriended each other. And you saw that relationship develop because you were getting letters along those lines. So it is... You never know who you're going to be in there with.
Right,
and that can either add to your misery or, I guess, make it better.
Oh, yeah. Well, this older man that was in with my nephew, he said he had already claimed Brandon.
That's disturbing.
And that was disturbing. And that's when I raised hell, telling everybody, I want him out of there, because... you already got all the other fraganacle BS going on, and then now this. But having a memory aid or something like that, and when chaos starts happening, especially when we're watching children, I think it's best just to shut all that stuff down if you can. Sometimes you can't. But what do you think are some things that could have maybe made this a little better?
Well, I think you nailed it when you said that she was out of her routine. She hadn't been watching children. She and her husband obviously had the things that they like to do, and they did it on a regular basis. And just adding the baby in there and having lunch with the friends, it's almost like in her mind, she had just checked the box.
Right.
So, I think it's important that as caretakers, we have to take a step back and genuinely and very sincerely evaluate the competency of any family or friends that we might normally rely on.
Right.
Because you want to see them through the rose-colored glasses of how they used to be or at their prime. But especially when you're talking about older folks, no matter how well-intended they are, they may just not physically or logistically be able to do what we want to them. So it's important to do that. I know before my mom passed, she stayed in a nursing home. But, there would be times when I had her over to the house and she was basically confined to a wheelchair. But when Vivian was young, we'd be doing things around the house and I'd say, oh, gosh, I forgot such and such. I need to run up to the store. And my mom would say, well, I'll watch her while you're gone. And I'd never said this to her, but I didn't take her up on that because if anything were to happen, she physically wasn't in a position to do anything.
Right.
I know that in her mind, she thought she could do it because she remembered how she was when she was not in a wheelchair and when she did watch her other grandchildren when they were growing up. But I waited later in life. She was older when she had me. So she was approaching her 80s when this was happening. And she just wasn't physically, even though mentally she probably was fine. I think and the intention was there, but she just couldn't have done it.
Right.
So it's hard. It's hard when you, especially as parents, when you don't have a lot of help and you need somebody to rely on. That would be the first thing that's entered my mind.
Right.
Just to evaluate your caretaker.
Right. And kind of touch base, I think, because I have a feeling that if maybe the mom or the dad would have called and said, hey, like I said, how did lunch go? Or let me hear proof of life. Let me hear my baby, And some people are like that. I'm like that. At one of the pharmacies I was working at, around a lot of young women, one of them had one of our computers open where we order drugs and stuff, and we'd all go over there because we could see daycare in there. We could watch little baby. All of us could. And we're like, where is she at? It was just neat like that. But by the same token, when my niece Biz was little, she got left outside at one of the daycares. And when Sharon went in to pick her up, they're like, hey, we need you to sign something. Sharon's like, what do you want me to sign? Walking in to get my baby. They said, well, we left her outside. And Sharon's like, I'm not signing anything. You fixing to sign something. And we asked Biz what happened and what'd you do? And she said, she took her little hand and she said, let me in, It's crazy.
Oh, little thing.
Yeah, she was old enough to be able to tell too. So, we got to be careful. Nothing's more important than a baby.
I know it's true. And I've made my share of mistakes. I think everybody has. You do
We all
something
have.
and thankfully the worst doesn't happen. It's just something that happens and we're like, oh my gosh, thank goodness this didn't turn out worse. But at the same time, in this case, it didn't. And it's twice that this has happened. So it'll be interesting to see what sentence Tracy Nix ends up getting on April 3rd. And we'll continue to follow it and update everyone. And Pam, I appreciate you studying up on this case and bringing it to us because I think this is something a lot of families can relate to.
Right.
Hopefully not the tragic part, but the part of just the chaos that can come with raising kids.
Yeah. And I wish people would comment and tell us what they think or what are some of the things they do to remember or to make things better because I'm sure everybody's got an opinion.
Absolutely. That's a great idea. We'd love to hear from you. Definitely leave a comment wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, we'd love to talk to you there too. So I appreciate you so much, Pam. And we thank you for watching this with us. That is it for this episode called Forgetful Grandma Tracy Nix, Hot Car Baby Death. I'm your host, writer, and producer, Molly Barrows, with co-host and researcher, Pam Hill. And a big thanks, as always, to our director, editor, and production engineer, James Roy. Remember, you can listen to more of our Gulf Coast Confidential conversations wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And you can also watch on the Gulf Coast Confidential YouTube channel. Just don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.